Thank you so very much, Chairman Brown, and thank you, Secretary Yellen, for testifying before the committee. As I was saying last week, one of the most effective things that the President of the United States can do to lower costs for Georgians and to help close the racial wealth gap is to cancel student debt. This would have a transformative change on young Americans across the country, freeing an entire generation from this crushing economic burden of student debt. I know a little about student loans I borrowed in order to make it through college, first college graduate in my family, but it was a different time. I must admit, over 30 years ago. Our kids now are graduating and they have a mortgage before they have a mortgage. Secretary Yellen, the average Georgian with student debt has to pay $277 per month. Without that monthly burden, would it be easier for Georgia borrowers to save for a down payment, say, on their first home?
Sure. Senator, I agree that student debt is a substantial burden to many people, especially those who end up with low incomes or have gone to colleges or for-profit institutions that actually haven't either not completed their degrees or haven't found themselves with enhanced skills that enable them to do well in the job market, and it makes it hard to buy a house.
Absolutely. And a lot of folks who are under the load of this crushing debt actually don't have a degree.
Yes, a lot of people don't finish their degrees, and that's a huge
Do you
problem.
think if we cancel student debt, it might encourage entrepreneurship, the starting of small businesses?
Well, it would provide greater resources to do so.
It'd make it easier. And collectively, are those things good for the economy or bad for the economy?
Well, they could be good for the economy. There are some trade-offs involved that need to be analyzed.
Okay. As Secretary of the Treasury, if President Biden issues an executive order to cancel student debt, are you and the Treasury Department prepared to fully support the implementation of such an order?
You know, certainly we will support anything that President Biden decides is his policy, and he's in the process of thinking through how he wishes to approach student debt.
Yeah, I understand he is thinking it through, and he's talked about it publicly, and I just think that this is a real transformational possibility, and I hope we do it in a way that will actually make a real difference for people's lives. I want to switch topics here. Last week, I chaired a subcommittee hearing examining overdraft fees and their effects on working families. We heard testimony about the predatory practices of overdraft services offered by some banks. My office will be releasing a white paper showing the stark contrast between how banks and the American public view these fees, the way banks see it, the way their customers see it. If overdrafts have become a necessary financial safety feature, then the public should not view them as predatory or illegal, as the white paper concludes. We also heard that some banks rely on these overdraft fees to stay solvent. Imagine that, the bank relying on overdraft fees so that the bank can remain solvent. Do you believe that a bank that relies on exorbitant overdraft fees to make any profit is a safe and sound financial institution?
Well, I would certainly hope that that is not the major source of profit for a bank that is serving the public. And certainly some of these fees, at least to my mind, are abusive.
Yeah, I would think that of all businesses, a bank ought to be able to keep a healthy balance sheet without pilfering the folks who are literally putting their money in the bank. How do you plan on working with other regulators to hold banks that use overdraft fees to stay afloat accountable?
So this is not an issue that FSOC has taken up. I think it's one that's in the domain of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and also individual supervisors, but it seems to me like a natural thing for CFPB to be paying attention to.
Well, some of the banks are already moving in the right direction. As Secretary of the Treasury, would you encourage banks to follow their peers? Do you think it would be a good idea if they follow their peers and instead of continuing these predatory practices?
Well, I think it would be a positive development if they do so.
Okay. Thank you so much.